got everybody. Tim, hang on, I've got to click my got it button. Hang on. There we are. Emma. Oh, Emma.
Yes,
Is
Emma.
Emma's doing the work? Oh, right. Yes, Emma. Emma's a regular. I was going to say
Hello.
a regular on it. Hi. And hi, Tim. How you going? Good? Good. And we've got Moe. Moe's note
It's
taker. Oh,
AI,
he's
Anna.
AI. Okay.
Yeah, I
Fine.
bought.
But we have Tim. Yeah.
I still have to get used to this. So that box actually takes notes for him of this conversation, and then oh my God, you think of everything. This is wonderful. So
But I'm curious to see how it will take notes of my Turkish accent. It's gonna be funny to see.
so
I've often,
how does
I
that
was just
work?
saying,
Go on, Tim.
I've often found that it's quite eerie because the note taker I find is maybe like 90% correct.
Oh,
Um, I don't know how it would deal with sort of non-American accents,
hmm.
Um, but yeah, I've often had that strange experience where you sort of read back and it's like, oh, that's pretty much what happened in the meeting. It just has this tiny little edge, but yeah, I'm not sure how good this one is.
So Tim and Anna, we will usually get notes as well for some reason. So I'm happy to
Yeah.
send it to you.
Oh, yeah, that would
And
be good.
yeah,
Be
it's very
interesting.
interesting. When sometimes Zoom does it to us during our team meetings, it's very interesting because the person who runs a Zoom meeting quite often is the author of many quotes which she didn't even say. So it's very interesting how sometimes it is not accurate and sometimes it is. So we usually look at the notes and have a lot of laugh about it.
Yeah, I'm fascinated because AI has to be absolutely multilingual, speaking all languages, and that's
Mm.
the other thing, isn't it? So here I am with kind of like an Australian accent. So if I went to Turkey and I spoke enough Turkish or Portuguese or whatever, how would that look? So yeah, it's fascinating. Thank you very much, Ola. See, we're learning all the time. I have had to open my eyes and go, okay, I accept AI. And Ola has been someone who's supported me guided me along that way, haven't you?
Yeah.
So,
It's
okay,
certainly
I think
something to be mindful of in terms of biases, like
Yes.
yeah, um, because yeah, the sort of training corpus that it has is going to influence how it handles.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Mm.
how it handles. Sorry, keep going, Tim.
Data.
Oh yeah, how it handles different voices, um different accents, all those sort
Okay,
of things. Mm.
okay. Well, thank you very much. I think now it's time for me to open up this particular session. So the first thing I'm going to do um, is the acknowledgement to country, which is important. So the Queensland University of Technology acknowledges the Turrbal and Yugara as the First Nation owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. We recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. QUT acknowledges the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. Now, as I'm based in Perth, Western Australia, uh, the area where I am currently talking to you from, the Noongar people are actually the custodial owners of these lands in Western Australia, and it were the Manga Noongar people who resided in this area. And I think, as I always say, it's a gift and a real treasure for us to be able to live and coexist in peace and harmony with our Indigenous people. I know that hasn't been without many struggles in many areas, but I think we're very lucky to be here. And I know that everywhere where there's been a university, like whether it's QUT or especially where there's water, it's always been, there've been areas of learning. So how we do that intuitively, I don't know, but it's kind of like, a honing in. Maybe someone will find an answer to that too. So welcome everybody, and thank you for coming along. Today we have Dr. Muye Teixeira. I hope I'm correct, Muye, who's joining us today. And I don't know if you've had I think Emma probably knows a bit about, or knows not a bit about, she knows Muye and her background in the robotics field. Now, what I've noted is that she's a creative maker and transdisciplinary designer. So we have a specialist in our field. And one of the topic areas that we covered was transdisciplinarity, and Muye has a lot of experience, extensive experience, global experience, that is to say. So she's worked in the field of robotics and design. And I did do a little bit of homework on her, and I'm just so fascinated by her work. I can't get my head around it, but then I suppose eventually I may. Okay, can I just, Ola, would you have anything you'd like to say before we move forward, or
No, I'm very excited about talking about communication in transdisciplinary area. So yeah, go for it, Anna.
Okay. All right, Muye, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what attracted you to this field, and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a trained architect by discipline, so that's my kind of disciplinary background. But when I started my master's degree, it was a point of change in time where I was a millennium graduate of an architect. So, and decided to do my master's in London in this architectural school, which is called the AA. It's a very famous school for architects. I was exposed to the new technologies. So the whole master's program was based on digital technologies. And at the time, we were just starting to use scripting in architecture and 3D modeling. The forms were changing. New design tools were coming up, like parametric design and all. So our master's program was on collaborative teamwork. So I had to work with 4 different architects from different places in the world. Like, I don't know, one partner was from Peru, one was from Portugal, and another one was from China. So we had this multi-national partnership as well. So we had to communicate with one another, all coming from different architectural training dogmas. And explore these new tools at the same time. So one of the things that we were using at the time was called diagrammatic design. So the idea was you should be able to communicate your design thinking through visual and diagrams, so that the next person who takes your drawings can interpret it and add on to that thinking and come up with something more intuitive. So it was really a collective design process, which made me think of different ways of communicating with, even though we were all architects, our cultural background was influenced in the way we diagrammed and the way we communicate with one another. So then I had also started my master's back in Turkey, and I thought, okay, I'll go back and finish that too. So I have 2 master's degrees. I don't know why I did it, but anyway. In my second master's, I wrote my thesis on collaboration and design thinking, which then made me start thinking about disciplinary collaboration and also creativity. And seeing at the time, so this is like millennium, sustainability was again a big topic. And, we were starting to talk about global warming and its effects. And And I was thinking the way we build is not going to help us to resolve the challenges that we are going to experience in like global warming. So at that year, there was a very stupid Hollywood movie that was called I don't even Idiocracy. I don't know if any of you have seen that. I mean, it's a very cheesy movie, but the first 15 minutes where it talks about the future catastrophes and all that and how humanity is evolving. There's this scene when there's a big waste landslide, and our main character, who was frozen in time, I don't know, 50 years ago or whatever, comes out to life because he was in a container in that way. So it's kind of a silly story like that. Which actually, a couple of years ago, a waste landslide happened in Africa, and a lot of people died. So that just shows how scary that movie is. So if you haven't watched it, I really encourage. So that was kind of my motivation. I thought, if I want to be a better designer that works collaboratively with others and uses all these digital technologies, I should be able to also work with other disciplines outside my own disciplinary ground. So for my PhD, I wanted to explore this topic, and I had the chance to do an exchange between University of California, Santa Barbara in States. So I was part of a research lab called TransLab, which the trans comes from the transdisciplinarity. And we were located in a very unique building. It was called the University of California, Santa Barbara Nanosystems Institute. So there were like scientists, and Santa Barbara is very famous with their Nobel Prize winning mathematicians, physicians, and all that. So we were placed in the same building as them. So in the corridors, like you would see these health and safety measures, because they would work with different atomic particle collisions and all that. So they would come out with these white, gowns, and was a crazy experience to see. And we had this large spherical projection space. It was called the Allosphere, where you can actually simulate any kind of information in an immersive environment, where there were 360 sound systems and projectors, and a bridge in the middle where when you stand in it, you would be all surrounded by this projection. So it was a program called Media Arts and Technology. So it wasn't one discipline based, but again, there were VJs, architects, scientists, composers, all kinds of people from different disciplines that would come and work on creative expressions of space in that immersed kind of a virtual environment. And some of the projects that took place in that space was, for example, they would help scientists to visualize those atomic particle collisions. And what the scientists would tell was, when we see those things happening visually, because humans are very visual, right? The way we see things, the way we communicate, everything is very visual. We do understand things much better once we see them. And I think that's kind of a continuation of what I had learned in my master's with the diagrammatic design, where you actually visualize things, and that transfer of knowledge becomes a tool to rethink and discover new connections, new possibilities. So that was it. And after that, I did my PhD, and that was my kind of transdisciplinary start. My journey started just there and then. So when I moved to Australia, had to resign from my work in Istanbul. I was part of Istanbul Technical University at the time. So then I had to restart everything here. And there was this job announcement at QUT around design robotics, which was a new research project that was funded by the Innovative Manufacturing CRC, and they were looking for a PhD, a postdoc candidate. So I put my hand up for it, and I read the QUT's motto on transdisciplinary. I thought, oh, I found my place. I have to get this job. It's written for me. So that's how. And I guess as a transdisciplinary designer, you have to. You are very, I guess, flexible, and you can move from different technologies very easily. Different disciplinary boundaries. You have to leap those disciplinary boundaries, and you always have to put yourself out there in these uncomfortable situations where you need to learn more and explore more. So up to that time, my research was more on like immersive environments and virtual spaces. I liked making physical models. Like I would use tools like CNCs, 3D printing, and all that. So I thought, oh, I don't have any experience in robotics, but I can surely learn and apply all my learnings from the other technologies. And they gave me that chance. So I was very lucky. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's how I mean, it's a bit long, but that's how I became a transdisciplinary designer.
That's fantastic. And I really like the way that you have embraced the different stages, like, going into robotics, scaffolding, I don't know the term, but just transitioning into that. And I think that is I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm feeling and I'm sensing that is very much the trend that's become so now, in that anyone as academic and wants to move around needs to have that flexibility and that open-mindedness to learn how things are done. Things are done differently across disciplines.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, like for example, when I did my studies, it would be like, oh, okay, you are doing a PhD, so you're going to be an academic. Like it was a very clear, linear transition. But nowadays, it's not necessarily like that. We can do a PhD, but we don't necessarily have to stay in academia. And the knowledge just that we gain in the PhD, like the researching, or whether you want to move into a more transdisciplinary approach, all these research skills are transferable skills that will put you at a different position when you go out to industry and start working for a company. My first PhD student in Australia is just finishing, and she just got a job in Arab. So I'm very curious to see how she's going to do that transition and how she's going to change the industry. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So so we need to be able to transfer the skills that we gain, and think of the PhD as a time where you can gain new skills and develop yourself in a way that you could be relevant to any kind of industry.
I think, and what you're saying is very important too. And I have actually watched the growth of that. I guess personally, I've always believed that. I think communication is probably one of the things that I have picked up, not as part of a study, but just part of understanding, is that you've got to be able to communicate to different disciplines, to different, like it or not, engineer. We were saying earlier, engineers have I don't know, they have kind of like a profile of, being very more single-minded, but in actual fact, it's about it's about sharing that knowledge, etc. And they're not all like that, really. It's just I think that we do stereotype. It's like lawyers, how they're stereotyped, but in actual fact, once you actually step in to that disciplinary area, you learn a lot. And I know that's been my experience through other, as you say, not just as a student, but as an educator or just working in those fields. You receive that. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Emma, Tim? Oh. Tim looks as if he's got a question, maybe.
But he's muted. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it might be something that go into, but I was thinking about that sort of transdisciplinary interface between the very like the highly technical and not that it's that hard, but like the sort of idea of creativity and technical, because I suppose that's something that maybe not, that sort of the how to interface with highly technical or between sort of very technical areas that have different languages or different approaches is something that sort of coming up a little bit, I think, in my research project, which is sort of between sort of like scientific approaches and sort of coding technical approaches which are kind of related. And so I suppose I'd be interested in hearing about your experience with sort of interfacing the different technical languages.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great question. We recently had a brain body storming session in our research group, and I think I can talk about it now in relation to this question. So, one of the research projects that I'm leading is called digital design to manufacturing human-robot collaborative masonry construction. So it's a very technical field. So we are designing digital workflows where we code. It's called visual programming. So you just like connect nodes to come up with some designs and then automatically translate it to the robot. And the robot simulates it first to say, okay, this is how I'm going to stack the bricks. And then you just run it with the robot and it just does everything, right? So it's very technical. But what we have realized is that if we approach it just like that, we are not going to solve the problem of bricklayers to adopt these technologies, because bricklayers are humans and they have their own creativity. And also it's a very, I didn't know that. It's through this process, this research, that I'm learning it as well. It's a very important craftsmanship as well. So I thought bricklayers just played the bricks, right? But we are finding out that there are actually other nuances. So our research project is going hand in hand. So the technical bit and the creative bit and the qualitative bit, let's say. So the more quantitative simulations, modeling, and the qualitative. So we did interviews and observational studies with brickies. So we recorded their processes. We asked them open-ended questions about technology, its adoption, and how they see it being utilized in the construction process. And then as a research group, we also come from different disciplinary backgrounds. So there's architects, there's civil engineers, there's an industrial designer, we have material scientists and business managers from the company. So what we did was collectively, we looked at the video recordings of the brickies doing the tasks. And we created these little snippets of videos, which we call them video cards. that everybody shared it amongst themselves. We analyzed them by looking at the images and thinking about questions like how can cobots be utilized in this process, and mapped it all out to identify 6 tasks that the brickies are doing in a construction site that could be advantages with the use of cobotics. And after that, we weren't still. We still think that if we just look at the videos and do this kind of analysis, it's not good. And even though we analyzed also the interviews qualitatively, we did a reflective thematic analysis to come up with the themes, we realized it wouldn't be enough to actually understand what the brickies are doing. So a couple of months ago, we ran a body storming workshop. So body storming means that you actually enact some of those scenarios with different tools that you have. So, for example, for brick stacking, we had timber brick blocks. Instead of mortar, we used kinetic sand. We took some of the brick tools, and we actually, within our research group of this multidisciplinary background, came together in smaller groups and enacted these scenarios to come up with, very blue sky, open-ended kind of solutions. And it's such a rich data. It's just incredible. And when you think of it, if we had just looked at the problem from that engineering perspective, we would have, we already have the workflow, right? It's automated. You put any kind of a brick wall, and then the robot will stack it. Yes, we solved that already, but we know that if people want to adopt these, it's not going to be enough. So all these creative scenarios, now we are redirecting our efforts to rethink some of the solutions that we will provide. So I think creativity and technicality, it goes hand in hand, and it should always feed one another. And I don't want to think that they are two opposing poles, but like you were saying, right, you were also a bit hesitant to say they were, but they are, like you say, they are interwoven, and they should always be interwoven to build those bridges, because otherwise, we cannot solve these wicked problems. Transdisciplinary problems need broader thinking and broader approaches, and thank you. It was a very good question.
It was. That was great too. And I've always, I guess for me, is a belief that we need to work together from different disciplines. And I, in my day, a bit of a rebel in that aspect, but it really is wonderful to hear that project with bricklayers, because I tell you, it reminded me of watching, those programs where they have these old castles or these very old buildings and they renovate them. And sometimes, always, something will come up about the brickwork and how it was done, and how it was actually, they don't even understand how it was done in order to keep the structure in place. And this is kind of like, you can go back hundreds of years. So, at times like that, I wonder, are we actually doing a circle? Because in a way, as you said, we move from the silos, because the silos keep us closed, to opening up, as you said. I think the term was blue sky, open-ended, and that's what it is.
And to be honest, trying to automate bricklaying processes has been around. Like, there are 19th century automation tools where, you can't. 1876, a guy has invented this automated bricklaying machine. But imagine 150 years from that time, it hasn't been adopted by the industry. There is a reason for that. And some of the observations that we had was, for example, around, so they put the mortar, and then they just with a special tool, just go over the mortar to finish it at a very unique detail, so that when the water hits the surface, it drips at a certain way. or it creates a different shadow, or the effects change, or when the bricks come from the factory, like they come in these pellets with different colors, there's nuances in the coloring. So it's the bricklayer's task to actually look at them and say, okay, I will put them together like that. It's very crafty, and I really didn't know that. So all these aspects are very important to understand, and sometimes as a researcher, it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, you have to be vulnerable if you are doing transdisciplinary research. You have to be able to say, look, I'm sorry, it's not my disciplinary background. I don't understand it. Could you please elaborate? So many of the times when I'm working in this kind of transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary projects, interdisciplinary people, then I find communications is very important, and using the right language is very important. Like, if you talk in highly heavy terminology oriented discourse, then nobody will understand you. So you really have to try to be more clear, lay language, and if you are on the other side of the coin, like if you are the listener, if there's anything you don't understand, you should be like open to ask the questions, to say, look, I really don't understand what you mean by thermonuclear, whatever, right? You just have to be open and be vulnerable to say, could you please explain a bit more? So I think as part of working in these big projects with different researchers, it's very important to establish those common grounds and common understandings. So there are some tools that we use to do that. So, for example, we do a lot of mind mapping initially in the beginning of the project. We map out the problem, and then everyone from the different disciplinary background elaborates on their understanding of the topic, and then we can discuss it openly because it's mapped out and it's written. It's much easier also to then discuss. And really looking at the team dynamics and like the background of people as their characters. So I don't know if you are aware, but there are these organizational psychologists use this kind of character defining profiling questionnaires. I would really encourage all of you to do one of them. There are many types, but there's like a DISC profiling, there's a TAM profiling. So it just makes you aware of your character as a person, because before we are researchers, we are also people. Like, some of us are introverts, some of us are very extrovert, and it has some implication of the way we communicate ourselves with others. So knowing yourself is very important, because you can then also understand where you can improve yourself as a researcher, if you are going to be part of research teams, or if you know yourself and you understand better others as well, and looking at their profiles, like how can you communicate better with certain profile types, it's also very important. So we in a meeting like that, it's really important to make sure that everyone gets a say, gets a voice. So there could be some introverts, some extroverts, but establishing that ground, respect, and communicating, looking at a mind map always helps. And I think it's a great way to build connections that way.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to, aside from psychology, I was going to throw philosophy in there, because I know a philosophy professor. He's an emeritus now, but he did work with engineers, with architects, with corporates, in terms of understanding the human condition. You know, I think I mentioned the human condition is my my thing. And you're absolutely right. Unless we open our minds up to communicating with all these different people, and also take away the barriers, because, like, some of the comments people would make about engineers or lawyers or whoever they are, or whatever, that we really need to understand that we don't all think the same. And even, I've very openly said, I'm not sure about AI, but over time, because I kind of like chip away and go, no, you've got to open your mind up to this, because it's, aside from the university, there is other people, family, etc. I have a grandson, he's only little. I mean, but how do you communicate unless you understand, unless you open up your mind to these diversities? And I just think that for example, if we're looking at the university level and that kind of area, every single discipline has something that we can learn from and that can teach us. And I just think it's exciting. And the work that you do, now I'm going to raise that, the work that you do is so, I'm going to use exciting again, but it's so interesting and exceptional. For example, I'm just going to ask, because I think I want this to me demonstrate how diverse. You have worked in the aged care area, redesigning interior. Tell us about that. That is wonderful.
Yeah. It was another one of the things that I did to put myself outside my comfort zone, because it was the first time I participated in an entrepreneurship program. I was like, oh, what is this about? Entrepreneurship. Let's understand it a bit more. So there was this program that was organized by Bentley's, which is a large accounting finance firm. And they apparently manage some super funds. And one of the funds that they are managing is really wants to help the aged care sector. So they run this entrepreneurship program called Care Factor. I was approached by a aged care furniture company who wanted to innovate, because actually it is an interesting story. It was an established firm that would sell aged care furniture for the last 30 years. And then the person who approached me is a graphic designer, and he purchased this company. So he was really shocked to see how old school and old school, that's the word, that's the right word, old school, the aged care furnitures were. So he approached us to say, is there a way we can innovate? Is there a way we can collaborate? And it was right after, I think, COVID. So there were a lot of supply chain issues, and they were having hard time bringing their furniture from, so they manufactured some of them in China. To bring them in was difficult. So when he heard, oh, you are doing robotics, what if we 3D print some parts of the furniture? And what if we rethink the way we design? So then this project came about called Reimagining the Aged Care Furniture. And we participated in this entrepreneurship program where we had to learn about pitching a project and looking at the market and seeing the data values and identifying competitors, and how to think about IP, how to grow a business from a small startup to a large corporation. It was interesting because as a researcher, you don't necessarily think about these things, right? You just think about research. You don't necessarily think about. But like I say, the research ecosystem is changing, and as a student, you might not be just going into academia, but you might be, maybe your PhD work might result in a startup company. And university, we have all the resources, like, for example, QUT has a Xolo competition coming up. So in 1 week's time, you can put in your PhD project as a startup commercialization pathway, and learn about these things. So in my case, it was an external thing. But so with our project, we, as part of that Care Factor entrepreneurship program, we got to interview around 50 aged care providers. And we used that to really understand what's happening in the aged care sector in relation to furniture. So we asked them questions around what are the problems you are having with the existing furniture, what are the things you are looking for in buying new furniture, and we identified many different pathways. We went and visited some aged care furniture manufacturers and looked at the way in which they build. And I was shocked to see that they are actually still using very old patents. So it's like dress garments, right? They have the patent of the chair in cardboard. And when they want to produce new ones, they go take those cardboards and then draw it on a timber piece. And then the employee just manually cuts it. I was like, oh, this cannot be happening. We are, we have all the digital tools, and this has to be built some other way. So we and one of the other things that they had identified was about hygiene and the need for the furniture to be a bit more modular because it would get dirty more often and all that. So we identified several ways we can innovate in the furniture design. So first of all, first design element was, can we actually 3D print the chassis and the bases of the furniture? Or can it be made of flat pack material, so like sheet timber parts, and we CNC it, or so we use a subtractive process where we excavate the material to come up with the final chassis. And also, can we rethink about the cushioning of the furniture, where instead of using highly toxic material like foam, can we actually use something more ecological? And I was part of the QT Center for a Waste-Free World, where there were many other disciplinary background researchers working together. So I thought maybe I should approach James. James Strong was a mycelium expert, so he works with mushrooms, fungi, basically, to produce things. So we decided, can we actually collaborate on this furniture project and grow our foam cushion bits instead of using a petroleum-based foam product. So that was kind of our pitch. Of course, we didn't get it because they thought it was just really further out there, because we were 3D printing the furniture and then, growing the foam out of. So investors thought that it was a bit too far out. But we pitched it. We had the prototype. We showed the prototype, and then it was a moment in time that I should have decided whether I pursue that as a career and leave uni or stay with my research background. So instead I wrote research papers about it and presented in some conferences. So here we are. But that was the idea.
So the mycelium, is that something that's still there to be done? Because
so we did.
It wouldn't be the first idea that was put on the shelf and then someone comes along later.
No, I mean, mycelium is actually, Australia sometimes is very behind in accepting change and innovation. Mycelium has been used as a packaging material, so they do use it for packing, for example, wine bottles, or there are companies in States who have this as a product. But its application in aged care was, no one had done it, but it is actually something. And what we wanted to do, and I always think of circularity and think of minimizing waste, especially local waste. So what we did in our project was we collected the waste from the furniture manufacturers, and these were old fabrics and some shavings of the timber. So and then we fed those to a local mushroom, so Tasmanian mushroom, Geroderma, and grow our own fungi cushion. So it's different in that way to many of the other applications in the world. So it's really based on the local materials that are available here. Because that's the only way we can actually solve the problems of this world. We need to minimize waste. We need to use our resources more cleverly and come up with solutions that can address. Further to that project, we were approached by another industry partner, the Gold Coast City Marina, and they wanted to do some products out of the waste that the marina generated. So again, we applied the same logic. We collected the waste from the marina and then feed it to our mushroom and created these different marine products. So, for example, bumpers for boats, because they also require cushioning. So they were made by mycelium, and some rope floaters. They look like donuts. So for a while we had these kind of donut-shaped mycelium rings, and placed them in the ocean and monitor them to see how they behave, and we got really good results. So
I'm thinking mycelium would be I don't know. You're the expert. Mycelium would be a really good product to use for children's toys.
as well, yes.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's okay. My grandson's only at 1.5, so I'm like, when you go to buy something, you think, oh, what, is there any toxic materials there? But yeah, I mean,
they also make like they also make fake leather with mycelium, so it looks like leather, but it's actually mycelium. So it's the product that has been explored. But yeah, so I always find myself in these places where it's not necessarily just about interior design anymore. That's kind of where I'm placed as a disciplinary core. But because of my knowledge with these kind of digital technologies, manufacturing, fabrication, and curiosity of these kind of materials and stuff, I always end up, and I guess Cobotics Centre is another one of that. So I'm part of the Australian Cobotics Centre that's working with manufacturers, and we have health applications as well. So we work with, for example, Stryker, who is a company that does surgical operations. So I do some observational studies in surgeries, like knee surgeries or hip replacement surgeries. So I go to operation room, dress up, observe, do the mapping, qualitative, do the video analysis like we do with the brickies, and then provide them with solutions of how the operation theater can be rethought with the cobot being in place, because all the surgical theaters are designed for people, and there was no room for cobots at the time, right? Yeah. But now we have this new entity in the surgical theater where you have to interact with it. It also comes with this technician. Then how does the dynamics of that collaboration and communication changes with the involvement of that cobot entity? So it's still about space, but not necessarily like when you think of it. Or I go to manufacturing facilities like my other industry partner is B&R. So they build circuit boards or So we observe one of their gasket room is where they put these sponge gasket around the metal doors for seal the boxes up. So we observe that room. We We create a digital twin of it, so we scan it, and then we create VR scenarios for the robot employment in space, and look at the interactions and possible. That's one of the challenges of being a transdisciplinary designer. Then people might not fully understand what you're doing because you have many hats, and because you are transdisciplinary, you can move from one area to another very easily, and that might make highly disciplinary people question you to say, oh, do you actually know all this, or are you just like a fluff person that's just moving from. So it comes with challenges, but we just embrace it. And
I agree. Emma or Tim, Ola, do you have any questions at this point?
I do have a question.
Maybe our students will share feedback.
Yeah, they are. Emma's just about to ask something.
Yeah, Emma is ready.
Yeah, I have a question, Müge, about your learning curve when you step from design into robotics, because obviously in this day and age, we probably all post-PhD will have to step into something completely different. And I'm interested in what that was like and what helped you through that process.
I think once you start stepping from field to field to field, you just start to realize actually things are not that different. It's the same phenomena, right? I have this beautiful 3D printed piece here. So you have this phenomenon, you look at it from different perspectives. That's what disciplines does. And if you kind of move around, it's like a 360 scanning, right? You have that kind of a understanding of that phenomena. So first time is difficult, yes, but second time, third time, fourth time, you just adapt. And that's kind of what a transdisciplinary designer does, right? We shapeshift and we adopt and we understand the complexities. We have that kind of a vision towards things. We don't necessarily see things in trends. We see things that are outside the trends because we have that kind of a 360 view in a way. Yeah, and if people are willing to communicate without those terminologies and like shutting you off, then you can actually create that understanding. But it is a lifelong learning. It's true. You have to be open to learning all your life. And it's tiring, yes. And it sometimes creates insecurity because once you shift that view, then you think, oh, as if all the grounding and the foundations are taken off your feet. You struggle a bit initially, but then you understand it, you get to understand it. It does require more effort, yes. I don't know how long one can do it. We'll see. Maybe I'll get dementia at the end or something.
No, you won't. You won't get dementia because you are doing it. And let me tell you from my experience.
I don't know.
No, it's that there's like being a person of my age of 71, I have learned that in fact continually looking at different disciplines has really opened up my mind. In fact, more recently I took a unit in law and society and studied the interaction from the lens of law. So I put on the law. I had to make the law glasses.
Yes, exactly.
And then just totally shift and it's like it was so fascinating because a lot of my work was done in in criminal domestic violence. Okay, so and there's legislation, so we have these legislations, but what I learned was how society adopts, like how laws are made, and I didn't know. Like I worked with legislations, but I didn't know the behind the scenes. And once you see the behind the scenes, you go, Oh, wow. I
Yes.
thought, well, I wish I'd known this 30 years ago. But, you know, that's why, for me, transdisciplinarity and transdisciplinary research is so exciting, because you have the philosopher or the,
Mhm.
you know, I did a project
The
for
critical thinking, yes.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Because in the early 2000s, and I had some organizational psychologists, which were necessary because of we're looking at integrity in the workplace for fire services. And I organized, remember, I mentioned a philosopher, I organized for the philosopher to be part of the project. And the professors of organizers was going, why a philosopher? I said, wait until you meet him and I'll explain it. So we had a meeting, and what do philosophers work with? Integrity, ethics, and the organization, which was fire services. They wanted staff, firefighters, etc., who had high levels of integrity, and so even the psychometric testing,
Mhm.
they had been using the police psychometric model of testing, and they needed these psychologists to change it, because so it was an ARC project, but because police are about law and order, firefighters are very different. They're about saving and you know, this is that's why I love listening to what you were sharing with us, and I think we all have takeaway lessons. But to me, you will see more exciting things coming in the future. That's what I think, and I'm starting to sense that it's almost like it's going to be eventually a prerequisite in the academic field. It's a way away yet for researchers to actually be able to communicate across disciplines in a more fluid way. And I think one of the areas that you have worked in, with climate and, like, for example, the example you gave us with the aged care, it's inevitable because of sustainability.
Definitely.
Please. So I
Oh,
said, it's
I think
fascinating.
time is up, is it?
I think it is.
I
Ola, did
feel
you
like
want to?
we can talk the whole day. I would love to, but
I would love. Yes, I keep threatening to come to visit Brisbane by the end of the year, and I might do that, and I'll let you
yes,
know.
please. Yes, and I can show you our robots, and if anybody wants to connect, for sure, just send me an email. Yeah,
It's great. Well, we make this video available to our students, so we'll add your email to that.
And maybe
Ola,
if you are interested with transdisciplinarity in research, Muge is our moderator, and she's really good. And imagine 5 weeks just about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do your course, Muge.
Thank you
Please.
very much.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And I hope you enjoy this meeting, and also 5 weeks with communication collaboration. And don't stop communicating on online discussions. We still have time this week.
Thank you, Ola.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone, and thank you
so
so much. It's
Bye.
wonderful to see you all. Thank you. Thank you.